Hi everyone, welcome. Hope you're having a lovely day. I wanted to introduce Dr. Michael Smith. Hi Michael, how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good, B. Nice to see you.
You too, you too. So today we're going to talk about how divorce and separation can affect the mental health of your child or your children. So Michael, let's first talk a bit about you. So you're a child psychologist and a family therapist, aren't you? And you've been in business for a number of years.
Yeah, no, I've been doing work and working with children and families for a better part of a decade now, and it's privileged work, and I enjoy it. But yeah, it's demanding sometimes because kids, families go through some really big stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you found, Michael, that in the past 2 to 3 years that your workload's increased?
Well, yes, and for a variety of reasons. I mean, most of us are well familiar now that this is effectively this month, year two of us in New Zealand dealing with COVID.
Mm.
And the impacts of that is, people working at home, change of lifestyle for so many. And of course, in the middle of this, are young developing personalities and little minds who are growing up fast and who are likely to remember, parts of this last 2 years. And because of that and the impacts of that, I'm having some fairly common discussions with families and what's going on for them and finding ways to cope with this emerging new normal, which, hey, in a couple of weeks is going to change again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what sort of common issues have you found that you've had in relation to the COVID issues that have been coming up for you time and time again?
Well, I think, if we talk about the clientele that you and I are both familiar with and those people
Mm.
going through, divorce and separation, or perhaps not even getting quite to that point, almost to that,
Yeah. Mm.
is how we manage those changes. Because let's face it, the COVID situation was enforced upon us. We didn't sign up for COVID, so we're left with this new way of trying to cope, and we're
Mm.
playing catch up all the time. And for kids at the other end of it, it's like, well, what's happening? What's going on? This
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. The life I've started to know for the last 3, 4, 2, however many years, dramatically changed overnight, even going outside and having to wear a mask. But in terms of impact on families, it's like, it's one more thing that, okay, it was kind of like that small straw that kind of broke the back of it. And families, parents, adults have said, okay, I'm making some changes. I've had enough of this. I don't want this anymore. And then children get caught in the middle of that quite
Yeah.
often.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been dealing with a lot of issues in my practice in terms of vaccination versus not getting vaccinated, with all the issues surrounding obviously co-parenting and custody around
Yes.
over the last couple of years. So, Michael, what, from your perspective, what's the most difficult aspect of divorce for children to comprehend?
Yeah, that's a really big question. And perhaps to preface that with all the things that we might talk to and explore today was just mention that for every child, the situation is going to be unique, as is that child.
Mm.
But there are some key things that are universally the same. And perhaps the biggest impact for children initially is that, okay, life for me is going to change because the two key people that I'm used to seeing on a daily basis, their relationship has changed. So
Mm. Mm.
often one of two things happen if we talk about polarity, the extremes, if you like. A child might internalize it, it's all my fault. This is changing because of something I've done. That's actually surprisingly common.
Yeah.
Potentially more of a concern is kids at the other end saying, oh, I don't care. That's alarming
Yeah.
because that speaks about perhaps some really big things that are happening in the family. And for them, it's like, well, okay, I'm never going to be there. Fine. Dad this, mum that. Older children tend to present that way, but
Yeah.
younger children, more of the big concern side of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think, from your perspective, that the first year of separation is the hardest on children?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the
Mm.
first month,
Mm.
all of a sudden, a child's been used to, this, and this, and
Yeah,
predictability and
yeah,
security and
routine.
everything in the routine is, and then all of a sudden that could change literally overnight just through a legal process. And rightly or wrongly, we are ostensibly wanting to make the best of a difficult situation. But kids are caught in the middle of that. And it's really important that kids are kept informed with the facts. It's very easy to get caught up in the emotion of the moment, but kids need to know what the facts are. Most importantly, the one major thing that kids need to know is mum and dad love them regardless.
Exactly, and it's not their fault. There are a big list of do's and the don't do's. What children don't need to know, for example, the intricacies of potentially, the divorce proceedings in the court, things like that. There are many things that they don't need to know about.
Well, there is one thing to be said there, and often with a child going through a court process in New Zealand, they will be appointed a lawyer for child.
Yeah.
That's an independent person who's meant to represent the rights and well-being of that child, irrespective of what the parents may want. And they hold quite a significant sway when it comes to a hearing in a court, for instance, in terms of what the judge needs to know. But yes, you're absolutely right. Does a child need to understand all of the ins and outs of that, or why mum did this, or why dad did that? No, they need to know that dinner's at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm waking up in a bed that feels comfortable to me. I know dad loves me. I know mum loves me. Things have changed, but I want to understand what that is. I want to feel safe, secure, and having predictable things around us help provide that.
They don't need to know the adult financial issues, or the fact that potentially someone's had an affair. One of their parents has had an affair.
Well, two things. Affair, absolutely not. That's an adult relationship. But financial thing, it could be a big deal. It might affect the pocket money. Just saying. But yes, you're right. On a big, larger scope of things, those details children doesn't need to know about.
Yeah. So what are the behavioural effects of divorce on children that you see often in your practice?
Yeah, no, it again, coming back to each child being unique and their presentation unique to them, totally get it. But it's subtle things usually that parents need to think about in terms of small changes. We may not necessarily notice them. I'm meeting with the lawyer for this. I'm talking to this person about that. I'm worried about what's happening with the house. And then whilst we're micromanaging all of these things, a child underneath all of this might want to stop eating their lunch at school. We might necessarily notice. We might be more inclined to not play with our favorite toys anymore, younger kids especially. We might withdraw from some of our activities. We might be more prone to having bigger tantrums, for instance. It can come out in a variety of different ways.
Reverting to wetting the bed, things like that, younger children. Yeah. So how can parents be armed with strategies and tools and to help their children cope with separation and divorce?
Yeah, no, that's a big field too, B. And I think the key fundamentals here is being transparent with your children, talking about the facts as much as they need to know to understand what has changed or what is changing. So for a child, security is derived from predictability and the fact that they can comprehend about what's going on and that they feel safe. Over and above that, it's a conversation around what are we going to have for dinner tomorrow? What are the day-to-day things that feel every day to me, that I feel secure? Things feel consistent. They're predictable. I understand when there's a lunchbox in my bag today when I go to school. Just little things like that we can do to keep the routine of things so that for a child, as we adjust to what becomes a new normal, it feels okay. The child will still have questions. And we need to answer those questions in a way that they are comfortable, but also understand the facts of it. We don't get caught up in the emotion of it. And there's a big distinction there. Children do not need to be part of or impacted by what it is as parents that we might be managing or juggling emotionally. We need to keep those two things separate, and that's perhaps the greatest challenge for parents in that position.
Yeah,
It's hard.
and it really is hard. One little tip that I give clients is that, obviously in most cases, they're going to be living potentially in two households, and I say to parents that give them $5 or $10 to go to Look Sharp or wherever, and use it to decorate their new bedroom, and say, well, look, you're very fortunate. You've got two bedrooms that are now yours. And that really goes well with children. They love the fact that that they feel special because they've got two houses and two bedrooms.
Yeah, and we could amp that up by saying 2 birthdays and 2 Christmases, depending on the parents.
Yeah.
But there's a key thing in here, and the underlying construct is, of course, giving our children a sense of control of what's going on. Now, I like the analogy of, be given $5, just be mindful if they go past, somewhere like Bunnings or IKEA store, they might want to decorate the whole bedroom with furniture as well. So just be careful of that. But I mean, to be fair, if the capacity warrants it, wouldn't it be really interesting if a child got to decorate their own room with that degree of involvement? Now, here's the thing. If a child feels involved in a process and has efficacy on what happens to them, they feel much more at ease with the change. It's never going to be 100%, roses. It's never going to be that. But it's what we can do to give them a sense of control, a sense of agency in what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. So how can you help children then through the process?
Yeah, again, another really big question, but it depends upon the variety or what the impact of those behaviors are. If there is a bigger impact in terms of we see, in extreme cases, withdrawal from friends, withdraw from usual activities that we might like doing. We might go and we might be an accomplished ballerina, and all of a sudden tomorrow I'm not doing it anymore. And what we're looking for, and this is sort of on the back of what I was saying earlier, is when we start to notice those small changes. And here's the thing, we kind of have to have an extra eye out and an extra ear open for those little changes, because it could be, and I say carefully, like a tip of an iceberg. What else is going on underneath it? So for me, it's kind of sitting with the parents initially, but then also sitting with the child to explore what might be happening and going on for them, because the behaviors could come out in a variety of different ways, but essentially it boils down to two components for me. Does the child feel happy and successful doing whatever it is they're doing? That's one thing. And do they feel safe? And a combination of those things essentially is what contributes to our sense of self-esteem, how we feel about our friends, about wanting to go to school. A whole variety of things then flow on from that. So in my role, it's those two things become the focus of the work I do. And I don't necessarily see families or children for long periods of time. It might be very brief, and they're okay. They might come back and have another conversation mid-year or mid-term if there's a semester break at school, for instance. But often it's just the skill sets around feeling okay, feeling in control, just generally feeling happy with what's going on.
Great, thank you. So when is the best time for parents to seek help for their children?
Best time? Yeah, that's a very interesting one, because generally we're waiting, or perhaps we're expecting, something to go wrong or something potentially negative to impact a child. That then might come out as one of those behavioural things that we've noticed, or changes that we've noticed, and we go, Generally speaking, if our little alert system notices this, then perhaps we need to be asking questions around what else might be going on. And there's no harm in a parent checking with a child, hey, how you doing? I've noticed you've read this book. what's it about? Just sort of noticing what sort of things that they might say. I'm not suggesting that we quiz them. Don't. At that particular point, when they start talking about, I'm unhappy about this, feels really hard and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
When we start getting those initial, okay, this isn't not working, too hard, can't do it, don't want to. When we start noticing a theme, that might speak to something bigger going on. And then, yes, absolutely, come and have a chat with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. That's some great advice. Thanks, Michael. So how can parents protect the children from damaging conflict?
Well, as you rightly said at the beginning, keep adult stuff out of children's way. Just at the end of the day, our role as parents is to provide a loving, caring environment for a child to thrive. And there are challenges to that. But also, we're also mindful of the fact that a child doesn't need to know about the legal process. It doesn't need to know about all these details about things financial. We need to know, are we loved? Do we feel cared for? Is my bed made? Or do I need help making my bed? Those little basic little things all the time. But if we're taking a broad brushstroke, child benefits most from a predictable space, predictable environment, that I feel safe and secure, that's consistent.
Yeah.
Then
And a couple of other things. Yeah, absolutely. Not using the children as messengers. And one of the fundamental points that you just please do not disparage your ex to the children, because that just starts a barrage of conflict that could take years to undo.
And it also promotes questions for the children, guys, and gives them doubt, because I think most people don't see this perhaps, that from a child's perspective, parents act like goalposts, but also like safety barriers, things to aspire to. Oh, I want to be like mum one day. Well, I want to be like dad one day. And that might be talking about a career aspiration, perhaps, sure. But inside of that, we're also providing these safety barriers that protects our upbringing against, the world, for which is confusing, changes frequently, and there's bad stuff going on out there. Look at COVID, for instance. That can have a really negative impact. Mum and dad protect me from all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So that also means, and therein lies a very interesting thing that is extremely hard for all of us to do, and that's find the positive in what then becomes our ex-partner, because we are trying to preserve that goalpost, that safety barrier that a child perceives mum or dad to be.
Yeah.
We have to protect that, and it's not about us, it's about what that child needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining me again today. We're really keen to have you back next month. And so if anyone's got any questions that they would like answered, please just message us, Michael or myself, and we'll be happy to talk about the issues that you have. Michael, how can people find you?
Well, if they don't have your contact details already, they can jump onto my website, MITE psychology, one word, Mite Psychology, at gmail.com, and you can email me, no problem. And
Great. And because we've got some packages that include expert hours that can be used for Michael he can meet with parents, he can meet with children, families. His ultimate goal is just to really help you get some positive and sustainable outcomes through the process from a psychological perspective.
Yeah, it's a key add to that here, B, is one of the other things I do, and this is particularly for school-age children, is quite often some of these elements become relevant to school.
Yeah.
So I will also communicate with teachers and school, depending on what's required around what's going on. Often it's really helpful for parents to have a professional external individual to help manage that process, simply because teachers, they've got a huge workload, a lot of things to take care of, and sometimes knowledge of an external professional is helpful to them, because at the end of the day, my role is also to help them, their child, thrive in all of the environments, of which school was going to be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, you want couples to separate with dignity, and as part of that, obviously, is to have happy, healthy children who know where they stand and have got clarity and routine and predictability in their
Absolutely.
in their life. So, no, thank you, Michael, for joining us, and we look forward to bringing you another Facebook Live with Michael and I in the next month or so. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.